post, it'll be fast. Just don't post for a couple of minutes till I tell you we're good to go, okay? All right. Waiting for the thing to hook up so I can do my posts. It'll be a minute or two, I guess. I don't know why it's taking so long, but waiting for the thing to hook up. Okay, I got it. Just please don't post for another minute or two so I can get my posts up at the top. Thank you. Almost done. Another couple of seconds. I gotta have a race with everybody to get my posts up at the top, which are important. It's the offerings, and that keeps me going. Okay, you can post now. I got everything up. Okay, so here we are on April 1st, and what we're going to cover today is this situation with the red heifers and how the Muslims are interpreting it. And I've been traveling around on social media, and yesterday there was a huge amount of posts about this red heifer and what it means to them in their prophecy in terms of what they believe, the Quran. And today, it wasn't huge, it was super duper huge. There were so many posts about this, and they're doing it in Arabic, which means to me that they are not wanting non-Arabic speakers to hear it. But it's just massive, and I didn't have time to go run transcripts in English because I don't really know Arabic for this, but I'm going to do it after the broadcast and see what I come up with. But I am afraid it's probably calls for intervention, let's call it that, against Israel. I just got to check the message and one more quick message check and then see. It's unfortunate you live in Israel and the shipping companies seem to think you work for them. Okay, nothing pressing. Okay. Yeah.
You're on the air. I'm sorry. I'm going to go out for a little while. Your breakfast will be waiting for you.
All right. So let me do my praise since we're a Bible-believing site. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay? So I know I did this yesterday, and I sat, I got up about 5 in the morning, and I'm, searching the Lord for what I'm supposed to do today, and this is all I got. So I think that it's very serious, and we need to focus deeply on this. Okay? Before I start, I want to say one thing, and you need to understand this when I go through the broadcast today, is that it's not that important at this point in time as to whether or not the rabbis in Israel actually go through with a red heifer sacrifice. You have to get this. It's now irrelevant. The fact that the Muslims believe it's going to happen is going to probably cause serious uprisings around the Middle East and maybe the whole world. And I'm going to go through their doctrine with you, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay? The fact that Israel they took in 5 red heifers without blemish, and they're down to 4 that are still acceptable for the sacrifice. In other words, they don't have off-colored hairs or blemishes or things like this. Okay? So we've loaded the gun in the eyes of the Muslims, and I'll explain to you how serious it really is for them, what they believe. Okay? And it's astounding. Okay, most of us have no idea what they really believe. Okay, they believe that the Jews have been done away with because they killed Messiah, and they are now the Jews. There's a number of other groups that operate like this. Black Hebrews call us impersonators. The British Israelites follow the protocols of Zion doctrine, that we're Khazars and we're not Jews and all this stuff. To set that aside, Israel had many wars since 1948, and they've never been conquered, never driven out of the land, and they never lost. So where's the scripture that God would have that? When you read of the synagogue of Satan, they say that they're Jews, but they're not. The synagogue of Satan. Every one of those places is mentioned 2 times early on in Revelation. Each one of those places is outside of Israel. It's never mentioned that way about Israel. And the scriptures for these end times talk about Judah and Jerusalem. It doesn't say Israel, because that would apply to the 10 tribes, also known as Ephraim, or the 12 tribes, unified Israel. The 2 sticks be one in my hand, Ezekiel 37. Okay, so the second Exodus is not complete. We're just Judah and Jerusalem. So when you see the prophecies mentioning Judah and Jerusalem that are unfulfilled, which absolutely Zechariah 12 is one of those. Okay? It's for now. It's for these days. It's never been done in the past, obviously from Zechariah 12, and it has a future fulfillment, but we're there. We're at it. Okay? We're in the year of recompenses, which started on or around August 1st, give or take 2 or 3 days. All right? So their prophecies run like is like a chain of 3. One is the Muslims are going to be humbled. Well, this has happened. Gaza. Okay? There's over 30,000 dead and probably more than twice that amount wounded or injured. according to the Palestinian, the Gaza or the Hamas health department, whatever they call themselves, which is probably a seriously inflated number, but it's still, I would say, probably at least 10 or 15,000 dead and massive amount of wounded. Israel attacks the homes of the leaders there. That's how they get them. And frequently in these homes, which are in Gaza, there's a lot of people. There's servants and family members of young and old ages, and they get killed too. Now, this is the practice of the human shields. So Israel has a choice of letting them play the human shield game, which is a war crime, and keep suffering and getting run down and people get killed, their houses blown up and so forth. Or we go in and eliminate them to reduce human, casualties of non-combatants. Israel has gone to great pains. Even the Americans admit that, okay? Many countries in recent years, let's say the last 30, 40 years, would create casualties in the hundreds of thousands and displace many hundreds of thousands. And the UN doesn't say anything, but because we're Israel, of course, we can't do that in their eyes. So we suffer, okay? And we have to go to great pains to make sure that we try our best to keep the civilian, non-combatant casualties low as possible. Now, with Hezbollah, we don't have this disadvantage because Hezbollah is not the official government. There's an actual Lebanese government with a parliament and a prime minister or a president, whatever they call it, the head. And they have their own military and they have some sort of navy and stuff like that. Now, Hamas has a political party with a number of seats in their legislature so they could influence the government, and they probably threaten the government as well. The government verbally says, and I think they're speaking truly, they want the Hezbollah to move back behind the Litani River and stop this conflict because they're afraid of taking terrific losses from Israel. Now, the other day, I think 2 days ago or something like that, Hezbollah said they're going to be attacking Israel, I assume with more vigor, because of the red heifer. Yes, they said that. And Hamas said it on day 100 of the Gaza war. And I believe when Hamas said it, they were telling the truth. I think me, like most of you, never bothered to look into Islamic doctrines, what they're preached and taught. So the humbling of them has happened. And now they feel that when we get the red heifer, we will do the sacrifice. And then, you see, what they anticipate, the Muslims anticipate, which could be truth in reality, is that when the red heifer sacrifice is ready, which means they sacrifice the red heifers someplace, they're having meetings in Shiloh, which is in the West Bank, which irritates them. The red heifers are in the West Bank in a kibbutz, which irritates them. I'm sure they're under heavy guard. There's probably 50 people protecting them. Probably just with assault rifles, but it's not like Hamas is going to come in with a B-52 bomber or an F-22. So they don't even have tanks or armored personnel carriers. So, several dozen guys patrolling with assault weapons is going to be rather sufficient. Plus, they could get on radios to the military, the police, and cell phones to call for help, and they'll come. The military and the police will come. It'd be the military there predominantly because they know that they're not coming to just kill the red heifers. They're going to kill everybody they see on the way, and the way in and the way out, and if they can, take hostages and stuff like that. So they're probably, no more than 7 or 8 minutes away from seeing another 50 or 100 people come in, and then there'll be helicopter gunships and armored vehicles, tanks, and everything will be there eventually. So, getting an attack on the red heifers would be restricted to missiles, and Hamas can't reach the West Bank, but it can be reached from other countries, Jordan in particular. Every day now, for quite a few days, maybe several weeks, there's been very heavy demonstrations in Jordan that the Muslims that side with Hamas want to basically push through the fences into the West Bank and go to work on us, help Hamas. The Jordan government has been stopping this, okay? Now, I think that'll change in one or two ways. The Jordan king will get scared enough for an overthrow of his government. He's not on solid ground. That he just gives in and, pulls the troops away and let them come in, which we could handle because, again, they're not coming with aircraft. They're not coming with tanks. They're not coming with armored personnel carriers. They're going to just come in. And, you can handle that easily, a handful of tanks and, it can be handled. It's a distraction. It could open another front, and it will make things poor for us, worse, but it can be handled by the military if God lets that happen. And I think there will definitely be trouble with Jordan this go round, without a doubt. So it's brewing, okay? Bible prophecy seems to indicate that very strongly, okay? Bible prophecy talks about swooping down on the shoulders of the Philistines, and they get it, that's Gaza. And talks about Tyre and other cities up in Lebanon. That also happens, and that's taking place now. And Jordan is not taking place now, but they're sure loading up to do it. Damascus being a ruinous heap, well, they're well on their way for that. We struck them again last night. It's not quite every day we strike in Syria, but it's almost every day. So we're actively engaging in Syria, that's one front, and we're heavily engaged with Hezbollah, not as heavy as it will be. That's the second front. Gaza's the third front. The Houthis are not a real front. They're like a quarter of a front. But they seem to be telling us they have a 200,000 man force that they want to come help Hamas. Okay? I'm giving you what's happened in the last 24 to 72 hours. Okay? So, Biden built a pier, a temporary pier in Gaza, to transfer humanitarian aid into Gaza through this pier because the parachuting is failing, the chutes are not opening frequently. In a nutshell, there's winds. It's on the Mediterranean. There happens to be winds there. They try to drop it on the beach. So the civilians, the non-combatants, have a chance at getting at the aid before Hamas confiscates it, which is what they do. And then they put it in stores and sell it at prices 3-4 times higher than normal, something like that. So, are the people in Gaza starving? No. Do they have food insecurity? Yes. Are they able to eat every day? As far as I could tell, for sure, yes. Do they not like the food they're getting? I believe they do not like the food they're getting. They're very fussy and they think the world should be giving them a higher grade food, Arabic food, for free. Because they started a war with Israel and created a massacre, and now they're getting the wrath of that. But now, give us more food. And we saw, and I showed you on my Telegram, many videos of them handing out sweets in the street in Gaza and also in the West Bank after a Jew was killed by terrorists, any Jew. And they did this many, many, many times. It's like how sweet it is. Here, have some candy. We killed a Jew. Got it? So, they've been humbled. And we've heard Hamas talk about attacking for the red heifer. And we've heard Hezbollah. Now they're getting off the narrative of the occupation of their land. Now they're getting onto the red heifer. So this is what they believe. They believe that when we have the red heifer, it's going to cause an influx of a massive amount of Jews, typically ultra-Orthodox blackcoats, coming to Israel to want to be cleansed with the water that has the red heifer ashes in it. Because throughout time, practically all of them have touched a grave or a dead body or something like that. So they're considered ceremonially, or they're considered unclean according to the actual real Torah. Okay? And I believe the Talmud probably reflects that, judging by their reactions and desire to do the red heifer sacrifice. Okay? This, they feel, is going to cause a major influx of these ultra-Orthodox Jews. Now, every so often, the Jews go up to the Temple Mount. They go up, maybe they got 50, 80, and some rare occasions they may have 200 or 300. Usually these are Orthodox Jews. Usually they have a Zionist doctrine they believe in. And they would normally be wearing a knitted kippah and tzitzit, tassels, and they would not be wearing a black coat and a white shirt and black shoes and black pants. They don't do that. Those would be deemed Orthodox Zionists. Okay? There's Orthodox that are not Zionists, and they'll normally wear like a gray suit or a non-black suit. They'll wear a fedora hat, which is not going to be black. It would be gray, probably, or it might be black, generally gray. And they don't look like the ultra-Orthodox, but they don't look regular. And those are Orthodox, okay? The ultra-Orthodox wear normally a velvet kippah under a black fedora hat. Now they have different sects or denominations, whatever you want to call them. And some wear different shaped fedoras. Some wear a large brim fedora. Some wear like a, more like a, it's a short brim, like a bowler hat. I think you call it a bowler hat, with a very narrow brim and more round. So they have their different hats that they wear, okay? And they generally wear a long black coat, a white shirt, black pants, and black shoes, and they wear the tzitzit and they wear the kippah underneath the fedora, and in the back, about that much of the kippah sticks out, so they make an open show to the people about how holy they are. If their big hat came off, I have no kippah. If their big hat came off, they would still have their kippah on. How they take a shower is beyond me. I imagine the rabbis gave them yeah, you can go take a shower without the hat on, I guess, They probably take it off, jump in the shower, dry their hair, put it right back on. Do they sleep with it on? Probably, I don't know. Okay, usually they use some sort of a hair clip to keep it on. If they're bald, I don't know what they use. Get a tight-fitting one, or get some sort of costume tape or something. I don't have that much contact with them. My family, when I grew up in New York in the Bronx, were what you would call a combination secular and observant. Like, they observed rabbinical Passover with no leavened food in the house. They had a separate set of dishes. My mother and grandmother would come over and clean the house, wash the cupboards. It was a small 1.5 bedroom apartment I grew up in. It wasn't a big deal to clean it. The kitchen was quite small. If you stuck your arms out, you hit both walls. You could hardly walk in the kitchen. It was a Jewish ghetto I grew up in. But it wasn't that bad of a ghetto. We had heat. When I was a young guy, we were relatively safe living there, and it progressively got worse and worse. And I left home, and then my parents left home in the late 70s, and they moved away from New York City. But anyway, the ultra-Orthodox, we had some family that were ultra-Orthodox. One guy used to occasionally come visit us, and he was a cousin. He didn't talk to me, and he didn't wear the black, he wore the gray suits, but he had the regalia on. And when I was getting bar mitzvahed, he made my bar mitzvah ring for me, which was a tradition they did back then. They got you a 14-karat gold ring with your initials on it, and it had a diamond chip in it, which was, probably back then it probably cost $3 for the diamond chip. It was these things are junk. If you go to a pawn shop or something like that, and you want to sell them a gold ring, which has, a few diamond chips in it, they're going to put the ring on the scale, and they're going to weigh it, and they're going to give you the ounce by the weight, and they're going to give you absolutely zero for the diamond chips. Zero. They have no value to the jewelry store or the pawn shop, but when you go to buy the ring, it has value. But because this guy was a relative, and he was in the family, he gave my mother a really good price. But back then, gold was $35 an ounce. I don't think the ring cost much money at all. I still have it someplace. It's rather small for me today. And then he used to bring chickens that were fresh killed. They were still warm. They were flicked. The feathers were gone. They burned the feathers off with a machine, and he had it in a leather bag because he came up on the subway. I remember my mother asked me to, she thought I should see it and said, touch it, it's still warm. And it was like a really fresh chicken, and my grandmother came over, So, but he didn't want to have much to do with us because we weren't observant the way he was. So my grandparents and my parents didn't go to the synagogue for the holidays, but my grandparents, I think, did. They went to a different synagogue than the one I was sent to. My parents sent me to Hebrew school for 4 or 5 years after school, so I came home from school. The school was across the street, actually. So I came home from school quickly, and I changed out of school clothes. Back then, we had to wear leather shoes, long pants. You could not wear blue jeans. You had to wear a shirt with a collar, and you had to have a tie. That's what it was like. So I'd get out of those clothes and I would put on sneakers and blue jeans and probably keep the shirt, I don't remember. And then the synagogue was about 3 blocks away, so I would eat, she'd have milk and cookies or something like that for me, and I'd gobble it down and then walk over to the synagogue. For years I had to do that instead of playing ball. It was really annoying. And they would teach us what they were going to teach us, which basically was reading and writing Hebrew, but the jerks never taught us how to translate it. What a waste of time, you know. So then I got bar mitzvahed and I was cut free. But on Friday, you didn't have to go. They closed it on Friday. So it was Monday through Thursday they had the school. And it was, I don't know, an hour, hour and a half. It was really most annoying. I didn't like it at all. And none of the kids liked it. And then I get bar mitzvahed, and as a kid in the same synagogue getting bar mitzvahed with me, I think there was 2 or 3 of us. And the rabbi, based on something, I don't know what, selects a passage for you in the Bible about this big or this big maybe for you to read, and you read it in Hebrew. So he calls you up and you read it in Hebrew, and then you go and everybody applauds and you go and sit down. So this kid comes up there, you know, we're waiting to go up there, and I knew the kid from the neighborhood, but I never saw you here before. Because all the other kids getting bar mitzvah, I saw him there for years. All to read one passage in Hebrew. What a joke, you know? So, and you didn't know what you were saying. You knew how to pronounce the words. You didn't know what they meant. And it was out of the Bible. It was somewhere in the Bible, not in the Talmud. So he said, well, I did go here. And I said, well, you know, when? What? He said, well, I only went for a month. So he went for a month, and they taught him how to read that passage in the Bible, and that was all he did. I went for 4 or 5 years. He couldn't write anything. You know, it was crazy. I mean, you know. So he beat the system, I guess, you know. Other kids went to other synagogues, and I don't know what they had to go through. I wasn't really that interested. And, you know, it comes a period of about a year where you're going to all your friends' bar mitzvahs and relatives, and they're going to yours, so you're always going to bar mitzvahs. So after you have the ceremony in the church, in the synagogue, they have a reception after that where they have some food, nothing elaborate, all very simple, and wine and hard liquor, and people take a shot or two, not the kids. And then you break and you go to a party at a event hall where people have weddings and things, and a bar mitzvah. And my grandfather was well off, and he was, you know, he paid for the thing. So we had a big event there. We had a band, and they had a smorgasbord of food, a buffet, and then they served entrees. And people were dancing and celebrating and running around, and people would give you presents for your bar mitzvah. And, then it would be over and you went home and that was it. And then you got deluged with bar mitzvahs. You went to so many of them, it was normal, like you expected it. Like every month or two, you'd have one to go to. I think I remember going to a lot of them, and the kids are young. They actually bar mitzvah you just before you're 13, usually. Sometimes just after you're 13, and then we'd run around wild in the streets. I remember we'd run around outside in the snow and then go back in the place. And some kids had more elaborate uh, event halls and better food than other people. It was. Is this in the Bible to be bar mitzvah? Absolutely not. Now they do it for women. When I grew up, the girls were not getting bar mitzvah. They were having sweet 16 parties, which is secular, nothing to do with the Bible or the Talmud or anything. It's just a secular thing like 4th of July or something, or like Super Bowl or something. It had nothing to do with religion. And then you would, but then they started bar mitzvahing the girls. They call it a bat mitzvah when they're 13. And they never circumcise girls. The Jews never did, never will. It's completely foreign to the Bible. The Old Testament, New Testament, there's no circumcising of women. That's just never comes up. And now the big thing is to go to the Wailing Wall and have your bar mitzvah or your bat mitzvah performed over there. And that's for the wealthy Jews because they usually fly a lot of the family and the friends in. So these are people that are going to drop $50,000 or $100,000 on the thing, which I never knew anybody that had their bar mitzvah done at the Wailing Wall. I don't think they were doing it back then. So maybe that helps you with a little background. This went on in Los Angeles, New York, Baltimore, Chicago, Miami. It was pretty universal in America. Were the Jews in Europe doing it? I believe so. They're doing it exactly the same way? I don't know. Probably close, but I don't know. Do they do it like that in Israel? Yeah, they do it in Israel. Okay, so this is what the Muslims believe. They believe that God's finished with the Jews and he's reverted to Islam. Okay? And their mullahs, their preachers, their Quran and stuff, and the writings they follow, tell them they'll be the humbling, and then this red heifer thing is going to cause Jews from around the world to come here to get cleansed. And the ultra-Orthodox Jews don't go to what's referred to incorrectly as the Temple Mount, where the Dome of the Rock is. The real site is by the Pool of Siloam, 600, 800, 900 feet away. The wall they call the Wailing Wall is a leftover wall from the Roman fort, which is called Fort Antonia or Fort Antonius. This makes Yeshua appear to be a false prophet because he said not one stone would be left standing, referencing the temple, and his prophecy, as far as my research told me, is fulfilled. And this is a wall from the Roman fort, which I believe Yeshua could care less about. It wasn't relevant. So they tell the people that this is a wall from the temple. And they call it the Wailing Wall or Hakotel. And they have two black coat Orthodox Jews standing there around the clock, rain, snow, sleet, or hail, praying and acting like they're crying. They sit there, and they, okay. That's the reality of things, okay? The ultra-Orthodox run the Wailing Wall area. Okay, it's normally always has armed soldiers and police all over the place. It's very, very close, several, some meters away from where the Dome of the Rock is and all of that. Got it? All right. So they feel that with the red heifer, the ultra-Orthodox Jews are going to get themselves sprinkled. You burn the red heifer, the ashes go in the water, and you use hyssop branch, and you sprinkle it on the people, and they become cleansed. You could read Numbers 19 for the entire breakdown of it. And they feel that you're going to have massive amounts of Jews, ultra-Orthodox from around the world, coming to Israel. They talk about it happening in the millions. And they're going to now want to go up on what to them is the site of the Temple Mount, in massive amounts. Now, the Muslims try to keep the Jews from going up there as much as possible. And the ultra-Orthodox won't go because they think it's a holy site. How they come to that conclusion with buildings and shrines dedicated to other gods, you shall have no other gods before you, in the Ten Commandments, but they won't go up there because they think it's a holy site. But when they get the red heifer water, they will. And they feel the next step, and the Israelite, the Jews, ultra-Orthodox, feel this way too, from what I could tell. The next step would be to take down the temple, the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the whole compound. They have minarets up there. I've been up there a few times, minarets and stuff like that. And then when they demolish it, then it would be, a holy place. They would come with bulldozers, of course, and get the debris out of there on trucks, dump trucks, and cart it away, because they would consider that to still be unclean, or they would, hedge their bets and say, we better get rid of this stuff, and they would. So they would dig up everything. They would dig the concrete up. They'd probably take the soil under the concrete, whatever. And now they have a holy place. And then initially what I believe they would do, the ultra-Orthodox, is build an altar. Now, we are never given any plans to construct a temple, because the next temple, as I've told you a million times, comes down from heaven. Read Ezekiel 37, the last 3 verses very carefully, and you'll see when this temple is there, the heathen around the world know that God made Israel holy. And that's the last verse in Ezekiel 37. And why would they believe that if a bunch of rabbis built a temple, versus the reality this temple comes down from heaven and is made without human hands? That's that scripture being explained for you. And of course then they would know this is not an earthly construction project, and they would realize it. And this is not New Jerusalem at all. And you read about this temple in Ezekiel chapters 40 to 48, and Ezekiel chapters 8 to 11 in the book of Joel, the whole book of Joel. So we know how it's in Ezekiel 43, we're told that we're given the ordinances and the laws of this temple, how to go in and out, how things work, and so forth. But we're never given enough information to build it, like we were given with the tabernacle. Now, they are in the habit of telling you the next temple's the third temple. Why they want to lie to you, I don't know. The Bible tells us we had a Solomon's temple, we had a Zerubbabel temple, and we had what's called Herod's temple at the time of Yeshua. So we've already had 3 temples. And Yeshua referred to Herod's temple when he chased the money changers out with the rope. He said, my father's house shall be a house of prayer. You're making merchandise out of the people. And so he referred to it as a temple. The New Testament refers to it as a temple. It was the 3rd temple. The next is the 4th temple. New Jerusalem comes after that. Now, the Jews want to do this. Not every Jew, but a lot of Jews. And Islam is aware of this and what their end times doctrine and their end times prophecy, which is not correct. It doesn't mean anything to me. I'm just trying to tell you what they believe. That's what we need to focus on. What the Muslims in the world believe. They don't have real prophets. They don't have a real Bible. They don't, okay, I'm not believing any of that. But what they believe is important because they will react as according to what they believe. This is what you have to understand. Okay? It doesn't matter that it's not true and it's not going to probably ever happen. The fact that they think it's going to happen is what has already motivated Hamas and Hezbollah. And judging from the surge, and I mean a super surge of social media on this, they, I'm quite confident, will react to it. I have no doubt in my mind. Now, what they're taught is that when this happens, this temple, first you got the red heifer, you got the purification. Preceding that, you got the humbling of the Muslims, which they feel has happened. Then you're going to have them going on the Temple Mount to pray in Mass. And they feel the Jews are eventually going to demolish the Temple Mount and build their temple. Now, they feel when this happens, it's going to usher in the era of a dejeuti, or some Arabic word with the DJ beginning. And that's, in English, they refer to that as the Antichrist. So is the Talmudic rabbinical, well, let's not say that, let's say, is the doctrine of the church lining up with the doctrine of Islam? Yes. They're both not true. They feel that the rabbis will build a temple on that location or another location. And that will be the temple for the Antichrist. That's the teachings of the church. And Islam lines up with it because it comes from the same source, the unclean spirits. Ponder that for a minute. Let me check the chat and see if I've got anything I got to deal with in there. I was never in Alaska. Yeah, come on, guys. Hit the like button. It helps with the YouTube indexing and the searches. I'm an Old Testament, New Testament believer. I'm not in a sect. I don't go to any churches. My goal is to teach the prophecies of Israel and give you the current events to see them coming to pass. Who beheads people in Islam? I don't know. I'm not an Islam expert, but I have been very lately, studying it. Okay. So they believe this is going to usher in the Antichrist. They believe they're God's truth people, and the Antichrist is going to persecute and kill them. And they believe the red heifer is the trigger. Now I ask you, do you think they're going to respond to that? They already have. Hezbollah and Hamas already have. What do you think is going to happen now? I'm going to take a quick break. Think about that, and we're going to discuss it. And we're going to get into what Biden, Netanyahu, the ultra-Orthodox parties in Israel, and what kind of role they got in this, the political parties. You're going to enjoy it. Now, the thing you need to understand is this is not an old theme in Israel with the red heifer sacrifice. The red heifers showed up in Israel in 2022, okay? And they were purchased from some fellow in Texas that raised them or was trying to raise them. They might be GMO modified. This I do not know one way or the other. And they bought 5 of them for it cost them $500,000. And they got them over here, and they were too young. And now, Numbers 19 doesn't specify that they have to be 3 years old, but I believe the Talmud has something like that. But that doesn't mean they're going to wait. The Muslims are talking like this. Why should the rabbis wait? Because they run the risk of these red heifers growing an off-color hair or developing a blemish. So that's a good school of thought. I've heard churchianity people say the same thing. It's a good line of thought. It's very logical. So this is not new. This is not old hat. This is something new. The ultra-Orthodox never wanted to go up on the Temple Mount and do any sacrifices without the red heifer because they felt that they could get killed by God because they were ceremonially unclean and they approached the holy place. It's the wrong place, it's not holy, and so forth. I've been up there, I never got killed. All right, so they're right on. Now, there's a prophecy in Islam going back to the year 1250 AD, or now they call it CE, and it says that the rabbis had not before the destruction of the temple 70 AD, they had been up to 9 red heifers. It's not in the Bible, it's in the Talmud. Is it true? I don't know. It could be true. Probably true. I don't know. So they've used 9 red heifers. Apparently, when they make the water from the red heifer ashes, it's a huge amount of water, I guess, you know. So they, the guy in 1250 AD, the Islam guy, said that when they get to the 10th red heifer, it's a sign of the Antichrist coming. This Dejudi or Dejubi, whatever they call him. The Antichrist coming. And the Antichrist is going to suck the Jews in and attack the true believers, the Muslim. That's the Muslim doctrine. Scary, isn't it? Most people don't know this. Okay, they're talking about April 8th equinox, sacrificing the red heifer. April 8th equinox is not of any interest to the Muslims, nor is it really of any interest to me. The 22nd of April is Pesach, Passover, and that it starts the 22nd when the sun goes down of April. Now, what's this month now, you know? So, it's possible they would do it before then, or maybe at that time, or they may do it tomorrow, or they may do it after Passover. The Muslims are not hung up on what day they do it. They think they'll do it on Al-Eid Day, which is one of their religious holy days, Eid Day. And let's look up what the heck that means. I have no idea what it means. I used to know, but I don't dwell on Islam until very recently. Let's see what it actually represents, because I don't know. Okay, there's an there's, I think, two Eid days. One comes at the last day. It marks the end of Ramadan, and that would be April 9th, or maybe it's April 8th. It's a celebration worldwide. What's when they break their fast. So that would be either April 8th or April 9th there. Oh, that's the same day as the equinox, April 8th. Ah, that's why they're freaking out. Okay. See, the deeper you get into this, the more shocking it becomes. Would the rabbis choose to do it on that day? I don't know. Are they really going to do it in the near future? I don't know. It no longer matters. They are going to try to stop this. How do you stop it? Get rid of it? Now, I told you if they do this with the red heifer, that one of two things will happen. Nothing, or God's going to punish them for doing this. And this could be the punishment. This could be a really big, serious thing. I'm expecting it to be that. The cow is already out of the barn. They're scared. They want to stop their version of prophecy. And this is spreading so fast on social media. They're building the people up for this. And this, to me, is the sign Zechariah 12 is coming. Now, to understand more, we got to start talking about Netanyahu and the ultra-Orthodox. The ultra-Orthodox have two political parties in Israel. One's called United Torah Judaism, and the other one is called Shas, S-H-A-S. Combined together, and they do vote together, they have approximately 15 votes. It could vary slightly from year to year in the Knesset out of a possible 120. So to control the Knesset, in other words, be prime minister, you need 61 votes. So rough cut, they're providing Netanyahu with 25% of his votes, which is substantial. Netanyahu also has approximately 15 votes coming from the ultra-right wing. These are not ultra-Orthodox Jews, regular Orthodox Jews. One's named Itmar Ben Gvir, and the other one is Bezalel Smotrich. Now, they are going to have absolutely no opposition to the red heifer sacrifice because they're Orthodox. There will not be any resistance from these two fellows in their political party. Now, it's thought that after they had 15 votes before the war, it's thought that now, after the war and the hostages and the torturing and all that, their votes may not be 15 anymore. They could be up in the 20s, 23, 25, or even more. More and more people want to go right wing. So if we take the ultra-Orthodox at 15, and we take them just at, let's say, a modest 20, that combines these guys with 35, which is more than half what Netanyahu needs. And his Likud party usually gets high 20s to low 30s. So it's a possibility that if they pull a vote of no confidence on Netanyahu, which is rumored, Biden seems to want that, Netanyahu could survive it with 61 votes, just with his own party, the ultra-Orthodox, and the right wing. Now, you need to understand what's going on to get a clear picture of how critically dangerous this whole situation is. But relax, it's just prophecy being fulfilled, and all things work to good for those who love the Lord. All right, so let's look at it. They passed a law about 2 years ago that the ultra-Orthodox have to go in the military. The ultra-Orthodox hooked their wagon to Netanyahu, which is normally what they do, and Netanyahu has been stalling the enforcement of this law. Well, that came crashing down on him finally. The people are mad. And they want the ultra-Orthodox to go into the military. And it looks like they will be going into the military, but not till after their yeshivas are out of session, which is June 1st, I think. They're also got Netanyahu to give them a massive amount of money from the Israeli public trough, the tax money, which is sick. So they want to be supported by the people of Israel, and they don't want their kids to go in the military. They want the other people's daughters to go in the military and their sons to go in the military and get killed to protect them, while the Israeli people are supporting them. Now, the Israeli people, to a good extent, buy into this, but it's wearing thin. They don't even pray. They read prayers out of a prayer book, and they read Psalms and call that praying. And they pray for the dead, and I could keep going, believe me. You getting it? So they're going to be scheduled to go into the draft in the summer, I think. And their funding is for all the kids that are draft age going to the yeshivas. The funding for them is going to be cut off as of June 1st. Legally, or April 1st today, but they're giving them a delay to enable them to adjust for the cut. And that's a lot of money they're going to get whittled away from them that they never should have got in the first place, in my book. But anyway, they originally threatened, when this law was being passed, that they were going to tell their Orthodox kids to go into jail, not to go to the military. And the latest version of it was, they said, we're going to tell all our 1,280,000 people in Israel to leave Israel if you draft our men. Now, I've never heard them rescind that, but I don't see how they're going to do it, because the passports of those not reporting for conscription are going to be blocked. You have to go through military clearance when you leave Israel. I mean, an old guy like me, no, but other people would, people within the probably age 40, 18 to 40, but they actually used to stop people from age 16 from leaving. So it's going to be hard for them to get out, if at all possible. So that plan could have been scrapped. Netanyahu's been trying to pass another law to keep them out of the military, but it's not working. The Attorney General's against it. The Supreme Court's not very interested in it. So they're headed for the military. Now, the thought that we all had here in Israel was they were going to break Netanyahu's coalition by saying, well, Netanyahu, we're parting company with you. You can't deliver on your promises. See you down the road. And try to find another party to hook up with who would give them favorable treatment economically and not having to go in the draft. But I don't think there's any serious contenders out there for them that will hook up with them. So they made announcements that they're staying with Netanyahu. Now this is most extraordinary that they would remain with him after this. He lied to them, deceived them, jerked them around, can't deliver on promises, big promises. And they're staying with him. The thought occurs to me is that they got Netanyahu to agree to let them do the red heifer sacrifice someplace. If it's on the Temple Mount, where the Dome of the Rock is, it'll be immediate war. And I don't think they really want to do it up there because they can't go up there until they have the sacrifice and the water because they're ceremonially unclean. So it's not going to occur on the Temple Mount. Some guy hooked in with the ultra-Orthodox purchased a patch of land on the Mount of Olives facing the temple. And he built the place for this, altar and all. The Bible says the red heifer is sacrificed outside the camp. It doesn't say you have to go so many meters or this, and it's outside. So the Mount of Olives faces what they refer to as the Temple Mount. It faces the true Temple Mount too. And they're saying that they want to do it on the Mount of Olives. Well, okay. Now, do they need Netanyahu's permission to do that? No, I don't think they do. But they would need Netanyahu's permission to then be able to go up on the Temple Mount in force. Netanyahu would probably have to send 600 or 800 soldiers and probably several hundred police over there to protect them. It'd be in the hundreds, whatever the number is. Okay? And then they would go up there and they would perform prayers or whatever they're going to do up there, rituals, I don't know. And then they would consider it acceptable because they were clean. And the fear is that right after this type of thing is done, they're going to take down the Temple Mount. But the Muslims see it a little bit differently, that massive amounts of ultra-Orthodox Jews are going to fly into Jerusalem to receive this water, and then they're going to immediately want to go up on they're going to want to go up on the Temple Mount, maybe a day or so later or something like that, or whatever it is. And they'll just start riots and demonstrations and wreck, planned of course, and then wreck the Dome of the Rock. Now, let's see how many ultra-Orthodox there are in the world. The Haredi is 1.8 million, but that's not the whole bunch of them. just in America, there's 180,000 Hasidic just in America. Oh boy, they're not giving us these numbers. They either they don't know or they're not talking about it. In Israel, there are 1,280,000. And I would guess that you'd have to come up with another 500,000 around the world. You know, as a minimum. I'll be right back in a second. As a minimum. So it's probably 1 3/4 to 2 million. So yeah, they could flood the place. I would think that we have to believe that there's at least 2 million total. 1,280,000 in Israel, and a substantial number around the world. They're in America, Canada, England, France, and other countries. So, why are they rioting in Jordan trying to get into the West Bank? The Lord just showed me this because that's where the red heifers are being kept, in the West Bank. They're going to try to kill the red heifers themselves, which would, destroy their validity for the sacrifice. That's not hard to understand. Now, Jordan in Bible prophecy is Ammon, Edom, and Moab, although Edom might be in the top of Saudi Arabia by Jordan and by Eilat and all that. I think Edom is over there. Okay? But Ammon is the capital of Jordan. That's North Jordan. And they submit to Israel in prophecy. Okay? Moab, which would be more or less South Jordan, in plain English, gets whacked. Okay? Unfulfilled and ready to go. Because after Zechariah 12, we're going to have a big piece of Jordan, southwest Jordan, and a big hunk of Lebanon up over 100 miles, and I'm sure Gaza. We read the prophecies, we read of Gaza and Lebanon getting it. Lebanon, open your doors, let the cedars of Lebanon burn. They shall swoop down on the shoulders of the Philistines, And then right after that, in two different places, we read about Jordan getting it. And why they're so animated in Jordan is because they want to kill the red heifers. And probably burn them themselves or steal them or whatever they want to do with them. Now, people are thinking that they may sacrifice all 4 red heifers so they could create a massive amount of this water to purify the people. I imagine the Catholics copied this concept of the red heifers in the water given in Numbers 19 to make their holy water, which has nothing to do with red heifers. So we're seeing everything starting to come together. And they think they can stop everything by getting the red heifers away from us. Ask yourself, do you think there's going to be more uprising, war against Israel in the Middle East now that I explained this to you? What do you think? I'll go in the chat and see if I have any questions. Forget the eclipse. That's really... It could happen on the day of the eclipse, but, the Muslims are not concerned about the eclipse. There is no red heifer prophecy in Scripture. Absolutely correct. It's in Islam, not in... Oh, I'm sorry. I got it wrong. The 1250 prophecy is from a Talmudic rabbi, not Islam. I'm sorry, Talmudic rabbi. And he feels that when they have the 10th red heifer, Messiah is going to come. See, there's also a Messiah fervor in Israel right now because of the red heifer. Now, they're confused. They believe that there are 2 Messiahs. Mashiach ben Yosef, that's Messiah, son of Joseph, and Mashiach ben David, Messiah, son of David. Well, obviously, Yeshua is Mashiach ben David, son of David. Well, we would say from the line of David, but basically, you could say son of David in a biblical reference. Yes, I covered that the other day. There is no biblical prophecy about a red heifer. You're right, it's just part of the law. People are starting to go nuts about it. They haven't really grasped what it is yet. How long will the Gaza conflict last? Well, with Netanyahu, as long as possible. Biden wants it over with pronto danto. Biden wants an end to it. they tried to set up an international peacekeeping force from Arab states to escort the food from this new temporary pier being built in Gaza on the Mediterranean, not yet complete, but being built. Apparently Netanyahu doesn't have much say in the matter because it's Gaza territory. They're just going to do it. And they tried to use Palestinian Authority, police or soldiers or something, to escort the food the other day, yesterday, and Hamas sabotaged it and ruined it. See, they steal the humanitarian aid and they hoard it for themselves, and they sell some of it to the Gaza populace at exorbitantly high prices. So they're not letting it get in, and then that creates the aura of the people are starving and they blame it on Israel. So we have videos of this. Biden knows it, the UN knows it, the International Court of Justice, they all know it. Will they ignore it? I don't know. I'm not finished telling you what's going to happen yet. I'm just, covering some ground here. So Hamas doesn't want any international peacekeepers here. Okay? None. No, I don't think Biden pretty much cares one way or the other what Hamas wants. France, I think yesterday, could be the day before, filed a new petition to the UN Security Council for a ceasefire in Gaza without specifying anything one way or the other about the hostages. So Macron of France wants to give Hamas a ceasefire, and Hamas is still going to continue to keep the hostages and torture them and rape them. And that seems to be okay with Macron. Now, will Biden abstain or veto this? At this point in time, I think he's going to veto it. Something happened with him and Netanyahu after he abstained. And he's shipping now to Israel about 2,500 sophisticated bombs. And he was releasing our... What do you want? Oh, that was a bomb or an earthquake rattling the door. Huh. And he's releasing the 25 F-35s we purchased, which brings us up to 75 when we get those, assuming we have all 50, which we might. So that's a rather large inventory of stealth jets. We also have F-35s that have the same type of coating as the F-35s do, making them somewhat stealthy, probably not as good as an F-35 or an F-22, but maybe good enough for the radar that our friendly neighbors use. So they seem to have settled some differences. Now, I haven't heard Biden or the Pentagon or Jake Sullivan or Blinken talk at all, or Kamala Harris talk at all about the red heifer. They may not be taking it seriously. They may not understand it. I don't know. I wasn't taking it seriously until 2 days ago. Many of the people out there talking about the red heifer don't understand the reality of it, because they don't know what the Muslims believe. They're just saying, oh, this is the tribulation temple being built, and nonsense like that. How many people in the world know that Zechariah 12 is the next battle Israel faces? I would say of the people that are churched, 1% maximum. Maybe a tenth of 1%. How many of them know that in Zechariah 12, verse 6, you see the two witnesses burning up the enemies surrounding Israel on the right hand and the left hand? Maybe a tenth of 1% of the church world. Is it in the Bible? Absolutely. Is it unfulfilled prophecy? Absolutely. Absolutely. How many of them know that in Malachi 3 we read of Elijah, who's one of the two witnesses, training the Levites to make the offerings and the sacrifices acceptable to the Lord? Maybe 2 or 3% of the church. How many of them know that in Ezekiel 37 it says we will not only have the temple, in the last 3 verses, we'll also have the tabernacle? A tenth of 1% maybe. How many of them know that in 2 Maccabees 2, chapter 2, we read that Jeremiah, pending the Babylonian captivity, took the tabernacle, the ark, and the altar of incense, and hid them in a cave in Mount Nebo? That's the mountain Moses died on, where we saw the promised land but couldn't go in. And sealed it up until God shows mercy to Israel. How many people know that in the church world? Almost none. How many people know that in Hosea 6, 1 and 2, God says he's going to punish Israel for what's called 2 days? And remember that Peter says a day unto the Lord is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years like a day. So it's 2,000-year punishment, not a 48-hour one. Time's about up, kids. How many people in the church world understand the year of recompenses and the year of redemption? Well, that are aware of it, probably 10%. How many of them know that the day of vengeance is tied into both the year of redemption and the year of recompenses in Isaiah 34, verse 8 and Isaiah 61? How many of them understand that the acceptable year in Isaiah 61 means a Jubilee year, which matches what the year of redemption is quite closely? Get your inheritance back, set free. Almost no people in the church know these things, yet they appear all over the Bible. How many of the people in the church believe in raptures that are contradictory to the teachings of Yeshua, dead on contradictory to the teachings of Yeshua, absolutely contradicting to the teachings of Yeshua? 95%. And I'll read you these scriptures. John 6:39. And this is the Father's will which had sent me. Now this is Jehovah's will, that of all which he hath given me, I should lose nothing, but raise it up again at the last day. So if we're going to believe Yeshua, all the believers that God gave to him, remember, you can't come to Yeshua unless God calls you. All of these believers get raised up on the same day, the last day. When you have the last day, it means there's no more days. It's after the millennium, after Satan's released and surrounds, like the sand of the sea, gathers them to surround Jerusalem and New Jerusalem, and God the Father God burns up the whole universe. There's no place to stand on. So we meet him in the air and go up on the clouds of heaven for eternity with Father God and Yeshua. How many people in the church know that? Practically none. John 6:40. And this is the will of him that sent me, that everyone which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. So your own Bible tells you that when you see the Son, Yeshua, you're going to have everlasting life. If you're a believer. How many people in the church know this? Practically none. Maybe none. Where do we see them looking upon Yeshua? Right in Zechariah 12, coming soon. Could be any day. Zechariah 12 reads like this. The burden of the word of Jehovah, now the word in Hebrew is deber, which means to speak or something, the word. You could say the word. The word of Jehovah for Israel, saith Jehovah, which stretcheth forth the heavens, and layeth the foundation of the earth, and formeth the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem, who makes it? Jehovah, a cup of trembling unto all the people round about. Now the people round about, when they shall be in the siege. The word siege in Hebrew means a surrounding or an encircling. It's not an invasion, it's encircling. Like a boycott or something like that. A locking in, surrounding. When they be in the siege both against Judah and Jerusalem. Well, that's the land we have now. Cup of trembling is like the cup of the wrath of the Lord. The same or similar. And in that day, it's a day, will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the heathen of the earth gathered together against it. This hasn't happened. It's not the Babylonians only. It's not the Romans only. In that day, saith Jehovah, I will smite every horse with astonishment, and his rider with madness, and I will open my eyes upon the house of Judah. Now, the 10 tribes are not yet back in the land, so it's like what it is now. And will smite every horse of the people with blindness. Now, the word for horse is sus. It could mean a flying swan. It could mean a horse. It may be a word used to design some sort of a war equipment thing. And the governors of Judah, it could be planes, tanks, I don't know. The governors of Judah, that's an incorrect translation. It's the judges, the chiefs of Judah, the judges. Why does it say that? Because I'll give you a scripture the church never hears. We'll go into Isaiah 1. Let's start in verse 24. Isaiah 1:24. Therefore saith Adonai Jehovah of armies, the mighty one of Israel, not the mighty one of the church. How about that? That's because if you're in Yeshua, you're in Israel, and that's why all of Israel shall be saved. Find me a scripture that says all the church will be saved. I will ease me of mine adversaries and avenge me of my enemies. Remember, the Lord has a controversy with the heathen over Zion, over Israel. That's a scripture. And I will turn my hand upon thee, that's a good phrase, and purely purge away thy dross and take away all thy tin. So remember that. Purge the dross, take away the tin. And I will restore thy judges as at the first. Who were the first judges? Moses and Aaron. Were they also prophets? Yes. Who were the next prophets to come? The last prophets were Yeshua. He's a prophet and much more, but let's not take away that he also is a prophet. And John the Baptist. And who were the next prophets? The two witnesses, Elijah, and Apostle John, who was told he must prophesy again to many nations, which was unfulfilled. And the Bible says Elijah will come. So I will restore the judges, Apostle John and Elijah, as at the first, like Moses and Aaron. And thy counselors, that's the 70 counselors Moses and Aaron had, as at the beginning. Afterward thou shalt be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city. Now, to tie things together for you, I'm trying to teach you people that don't know these things. After Zechariah 12, of course, we go into Zechariah 13, which is a continuation of that. And in verse 8 and 9, we read this: it shall come to pass in all the land, call Haaretz, land of Israel, the Lord saith Jehovah, 2 parts, 2/3 therein shall be cut off and die, but the 3rd part shall be left therein. And I will bring the 3rd part through the fire, and refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, Jehovah Elohim. Oh, so what's he saying? He's going to try them as silver and gold and refine them. Go back to Isaiah 1. Verse 25, and I will turn my hand upon thee, purely purge away thy dross, and take away all thy tin. Sounds like the same thing, doesn't it? Of course it is. And we can elaborate more on this if we go to Malachi 3. This is all the stuff the church doesn't want you to know. Behold, I will send, not all of it, but a piece of it. Behold, I will send my messenger, my Malach, and it's a play on words from the book. Malachi is really Malach. You know. I will send my, in Hebrew, Malach, I will send my Malach, and he shall prepare the way before me. This is Elijah. John the Baptist had the spirit of Elijah. He was doing this also, but when they asked him if he was Elijah, he emphatically said no. And we read he was filled with the spirit of Elijah while he was still inside his mother. So obviously there is life in the womb. Don't hear that argument made against the abortionists, but you should. And he shall prepare the way before me, and Adonai, whom you seek, shall suddenly come to his temple. So this is the glory of God of Israel coming to the temple. who is the same glory God of Israel that anointed Solomon's temple but did not live there, and who met with Moses and Aaron at the mercy seat in the tabernacle, and was with the children of Israel in the wilderness with Moses and Aaron. Come to his temple, even now it switches, it says the messenger, the Malach of the covenant, whom you delight in. Now, the Jews believe Elijah is going to come and teach them Torah, and they're right. Starting with the Messiah, I'm sure. Whom you delight in. They, on Passover, they leave, Passover is an interesting date when you talk to two witnesses. They leave a place setting at the Pesach Seder for Elijah with plates, fork, knife, spoon, chair. They have chairs with his name on it. And they pour him a glass of wine. And if it's safe enough, they leave the door open for him. Of course, this is superstition. It's not anything in the Bible. Behold, he shall come. Speaking of Elijah, saith Jehovah of hosts. Okay? But who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire, and like a fuller's soap. There it comes again, right? And he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He shall purify the sons of Levi, and purge them as gold and silver, unto Jehovah, an offering in righteousness, that they may make an offering unto Jehovah in righteousness. Then shall the offering of Judah and Jerusalem be pleasant unto Jehovah, as in the days of old, as in the former years. Now, when this happens, the blessings of the law come on Israel. Now, some of you are going to say that's all nonsense. It's been done away with. Well, I told you the truth about the rapture, how they defy the words of Yeshua. Let's talk about how they defy the words of Yeshua in Matthew 5, verse 17. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy. Now, he's saying I didn't come to destroy the law and the prophets. The churches teach the law has been destroyed, but the prophets not. Illogical. But to fulfill. Now, they stop there. Let's read the next verse. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. So has all been fulfilled? Let's see. Have you seen New Jerusalem lately? It's only 1,500 miles high, 1,500 miles wide, 1,500 miles long, with see-through gold streets. Have you seen that yet? Did you see it on CNN or Fox News lately? No. Israel been restored. Israel get all their land back. Come on. What's been fulfilled? Has all been fulfilled? You have to be a serious dumbbell to believe everything's been fulfilled. Let's keep reading. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Now, what happens if you teach against and ignore all 613? If you do it with one, you could be the least in the kingdom of heaven. Now, what happens if you do it with 613 like the church? You see, when you reject knowledge, Yeshua says he's going to reject you. And the churches reject knowledge. I just proved it to you. The only way the churches can get away with this is rejecting the scriptures. And Yeshua is the word made flesh. So who are they rejecting? Yeshua. Yet they tell you otherwise, but they're not telling you the truth. Now, people don't like that. But remember, if you're in Yeshua, you're in Israel. Now, we go to Matthew 7, and we cap this down real good. Verse 21, Matthew 7:21. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father, which is in heaven. So he's telling you faith without works is dead. The church is telling you faith on its own is fine. Let's keep reading. Matthew 7:22. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? Now let's get this straight. Do the Buddhists prophesy in the name of Yeshua? No. How about Islam? No. How about the Hindus? No. How about the atheists? No. The Jews? No, they'd get beaten up in the synagogue if not killed and thrown out. This is the church. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils. That's only the church, not the synagogues, not the Buddhists, not the Hindus, not Islam. Have cast out devils. And in thy name done many wondrous works. And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you that work lawlessness. Iniquity is lawlessness. Paul said, without the Lord, you'd have no sin. They tell you Paul said the Lord's done away with. Yeshua brought in the age of grace because you could not follow the law. Of course, the temple was destroyed in 70 A.D. Therefore, the curses of the Lord do not come upon you because you have Yeshua. But nothing in there ever said anything about getting the blessings of the law. From what Yeshua did on the cross. No. Now, let's go back to Zechariah 12 and see what happens. Verse 6, Zechariah 12:6. In that day, it's a day, will I make the judges of Judah, the two witnesses, like an earth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf, and they shall devour, it really means burn up, all the people round about, on the right hand and on the left. And Jerusalem, it really says, remain still in her own place, even in Jerusalem. It doesn't get destroyed. So, if Zechariah 12 happened in the past, that would mean the two witnesses burned up all the enemies surrounding Jerusalem and Judah. God says it twice because there's two of them. He says, the judges of Judah shall be like an earth of fire among the wood. And then he says it a second time, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf, because there's two of them. Who the heck do you think this is? Billy Graham? Next verse, verse 7, Jehovah also shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. Well, he saves them from what? Let's keep reading. In that day shall Jehovah defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David. What? The feeble are the old people that can't walk. They use canes, walkers, they stumble, they bent over. They're going to be like David, who killed Goliath and a lion and a bear. What's going on here? What is this? And the house of David shall be as Elohim, as God, as the angel of the Lord before them. That's the angel that was with Israel in the wilderness with Moses and Aaron, Michael, the glory of God of Israel. And he killed 150,000 in one day. What the heck is this? This is what the church doesn't want you to know, because this could happen tomorrow or today. It shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the heathen that come against Jerusalem. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and supplications. Well, what's going on? He pours his spirit out on him. It had nothing to do with the red heifer. He pours his spirit out on them. I don't think it does. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it does. Maybe I'm wrong. But he pours his spirit out on them, and now they become believers. Right? Can't argue against that. And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced. They shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for firstborn. In that day shall there be a great mourning in Jerusalem, as the mourning of Hebron in the valley of Megiddon, and the land shall mourn, every family apart. Now, when they killed Yeshua on the cross, and they stuck a spear in his side, and the blood and water came out, which people say was the beginning of the church, the water, the baptism, the blood, the communion, and I don't know how to take difference with that. It sounds like a decent argument to me, so I just let it lay. I don't know if it's true or not, but it sounds good. So, who was mourning? Were all the families of Israel mourning when they killed Yeshua? Of course not. This is a reference, a veiled reference, because he wasn't revealing the Yeshua clearly in the Old Testament then. But we know who this is. It's Yeshua. So they see, first the Spirit is poured out on them. That means they're believers. And then they see Yeshua. John 6:40. And this is the will of him that sent me, that every one which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life. There it is. You can argue all you want, but you don't have the scriptures to kick against what I just gave you. It also says, when you see him, you shall be like him. This is the sign of the Son of Man in the clouds. This is Yeshua coming as the lightning from the east to the west, seated on the right hand of power, which is God the Father. But he's still on God's right hand. He says he's seated on the right hand of power. When he comes to earth in Revelation 19, he's no longer seated on God's right hand. This is just the sign of the Son of Man in the clouds. Psalm 110:1. Listen to what I'm saying and you'll get it straight. Psalm 110:1. The Lord said to my Lord, sit thou at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. Well, his enemies are still his footstool when he appears in the clouds, seated on the right hand of power, because he's still seated on his Father's right hand. So when if you are not in Israel and you are a believer in Israel, and you see the sign of the Son of Man like lightning from the east to the west, will you too have eternal life? Of course. And then you'll come to Israel. Because you're in Israel. Well, let me give it to you another way, just to make sure you get it down cold. Revelation 21. I gotta look for the verse. Verse 13. On the east, wait, back up. Verse 12, Revelation 21:12. It's describing New Jerusalem, and had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. You have 12 gates, each gate made out of a giant pearl, it says earlier in the chapter, I believe, guarded by an angel. The 12 gates are each named after one of the 12 tribes of Israel. There's no Baptist gate, there's no Catholic gate, there's no Assemblies of God or Episcopalian or Presbyterian or Lutheran or Evangelical or Pentecostal gate. So you are incorporated into Israel, and that's why you can get in. If you're going to hold on to the church, you ain't getting in. You're not going to be able to go in any of the gates. Now, we read this in Ezekiel 47 after the battle of Zechariah 12, when they divide the land up. And we go to Ezekiel 47, verse 21. Now, I'll prove it to you. So shall you divide this land unto you according to the tribes of Israel. All right. And it shall come to pass that we shall divide it by lot for an inheritance unto you and to the stranger, the non-Israelite, the stranger that sojourn among you, which will beget children among you. And they shall be unto you as born in the country among the children of Israel. They shall have inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. And it shall come to pass that in what tribe the stranger sojourneth, there shall you give him his inheritance, saith Adonai Jehovah. So you become incorporated into Israel. That's why they say it's spiritual Israel, because you're only going to get in by having the right spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. All this stuff can happen any day now, guys. And the church doesn't want you to understand the eternal life part of it. Or you wouldn't be in the church. You'd give up. What's happening in the chat? I have a few prayer requests. Somebody just reminded me of that, and I didn't get those out. And they're very important, especially to the people that we're praying for. Okay. The first prayer request is for L.N. Larry Nancy. L.N. Larry Nancy. Prayer request is to get his car back, which was towed. Prayer request for LN to get his car back, which was towed. Next. LC, Larry Charlie. LC, Larry Charlie. LC and son and daughter. So the prayer is for LC and the son and the daughter to get a place to live and also for healing. For LC with the son and the daughter to get a place to live and also for healing. Okay. Next prayer request is for LG, Larry Girl. LG, Larry Girl. LG. Prayer request is for LG to get off drugs and drink. LG, the prayer request is to get off drugs and drinking. Okay. What I think is going to happen is the siege against Jerusalem is going to come from the UN. And they're going to try to send troops in here, and they're going to try to stop Islam people from coming in here to conducting another massacre on Israel, which will be a bloodbath supreme. Now, some of the Islamists may be with them, I don't know. I don't think they would want them standing next to their soldiers. It's not Hezbollah, Hamas, Al-Fatah, Taliban, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, because they wouldn't surround Jerusalem, they'd rush right in. But these are UN forces. The nations don't quit going to this UN Security Council to get a ceasefire imposed, but passing non-binding resolutions to have a ceasefire is meaningless. They have to mobilize the army, UN forces, to go in and enforce a ceasefire, and that has not occurred yet. Will it occur? I don't know. What do I think the timing on this is? I think it could be any day, but it may be some weeks. But it's moving very rapidly. And remember Jeremiah 30:11. God will destroy all the nations that he dispersed the Jews into. Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 11. And in Jeremiah chapter 30, we read of Jacob's trouble. It's the only place in the Bible it says Jacob's trouble. It says, great is Jacob's trouble, but he will be saved out of it. In Zechariah 12, they're all saved out of it. Not one gets a broken fingernail or a sprained ankle. In Gog and Magog, they're not saved out of it. That's absurd. Okay? So there you have that. So that's why all the nations in the world are gearing up for this next war. China and North Korea are geared up, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan are geared up, Philippines geared up, Guam is geared up, America's geared up, Russia's geared up, Iran is geared up, Belarus is geared up, NATO is geared up, the European Union's geared up. And with these modern implements, they're going to destroy their nations. They're not going to be able to, they're not going to kill everybody, they're going to destroy the nations, and the people are going to leave. They're going to all go into captivity. Of course, they put Israel into captivity. And they were cruel and mean to Israel. The Lord hath a controversy with the nations over Zion. Well, I think I got across what I wanted to today. I hope I helped. I hope you enjoyed it. Please remembering me in the offerings if you enjoyed it. Please hit the like button, and if you want to be updated when big events break in Israel, I do emergency live streams at night, during the day, the afternoon, whatever, and subscribe and then click button to get notices, and you'll get notified when I come on with a live stream. And you'll get the news here probably 12 to 24 hours before you will on mainstream media. Most of my stuff comes out of social media, most of it. And I translate from other languages and stuff like that. Then there's my Telegram channel, which I update about 5 times a day. And you could subscribe to that. It's free. You need the app, Telegram Messenger. That's free. Send me an email. My email address is in the bottom line of the chat, and it's in the chat up at the top, in the bottom line of the description box. The offering information is in the description box too, and at the top of the chat. And PayPal's the best for me. And you just send me an email and tell me you want to join Telegram, and I'll send you the invite link, and you have the app installed, Telegram Messenger, and you're in. Takes a few seconds, and it's all free, and you'll get all the latest news. And so please pray for me and my wife for peace, safety, protection, joy, healing. Pray for our health and finances. Pray for our animals and pets to be happy, healthy, and whole. And Beulah found a way to jump the fence again, so please pray Beulah can't get out. That's the dog. And I think I blocked her, but please pray she doesn't get out anymore. And I hope you really got something out of this. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And a little over 2 hours. That seems to be my norm. Okay, kids. I wear sunglasses to make it easier on my eyes because I'm in front of the screen so much. I'm out. Thanks.